Welcome to Learn It, a series of digital scrapbooking tutorials by Studio Wendy at Scrapbook Graphics. I'm very excited to be featured in this month's DigiFiles, and I wanted to take just a couple minutes to demonstrate the Lightroom Templates and Embellish It actions that are included in the download. You'll see here I'm in my Finder in the Mac, and in your download you'll have some Photoshop templates for those who don't want to use the Lightroom templates. You'll have some overlays, and these are used to generate drop shadows after we're done with our Lightroom templates. And then you have the actual Lightroom template files. These Lightroom template files will be installed in a very specific location. You just need to copy the entire folder into your user folder, into the library, application support, Adobe Lightroom print templates, and just copy the entire folder right in there. They're going to show up in Lightroom by the name of this folder here. So you can rename it if you want to have it show up in Lightroom the way you want it. This location's slightly different for PC users. You'll be in your user folder, in your app data folder, and it is spelled out in the PDF tutorial that's included in the tutorials download. So in addition, you'll have the action files, which are in another folder to install in Photoshop or Photoshop Elements. But let's pop over into Lightroom, and we're going to take a brief look at how to use these templates. I'm going to assume that if you are using these templates in Lightroom that you know a little bit about Lightroom, so you'll be able to get your files into your library. I have set up a smart collection where I've dragged in the pictures that I want to use for these pages, and then click over to the print module where you can, over here on the left, look for your template browser, expand it if it's not expanded, and you'll be able to see all of your Lightroom templates that you've installed. Now, you probably will only see the default Lightroom templates that come with Lightroom and the folder called User Templates, and then these new DigiFiles templates here that you have installed. If you expand that folder, you can run your mouse over each one to see a thumbnail of it, and when you've selected the template that you want to use, you can just click on it and it will bring the template up here in your window. Here is the fun and easy part. Now all you have to do is drag and drop your photos right onto this page. So I'm just going to start dragging some pictures over. When you drag a picture in, it will automatically fill it to the width or height that it needs to be able to fill the entire box. If you need to adjust the positioning of it, hold in your Command or Control key, and then you can click and drag the photo whichever direction you have additional image left. So you see here on this one drags left to right because it's a horizontal picture in a square box. This one will drag top to bottom. Okay, so you can position those the way you want them. If you have a photo that you really want to crop extremely differently than the image that you have, so let's try one. Let's drag this in here. Say for this picture that I really want to zoom in on this gazebo here. I can't do that directly within the print module. So what I'd have to do is, just leaving that picture selected, click over to the Develop module. That will bring up the picture. Then I can grab the crop tool and I can actually drag this image around here to get it cropped and zoomed in more if I want to. So I could get really specific, and if I knew I'm going to make this a square photo, I can even change this box here to be square by just going to 1:1 ratio, or I can simply position it like I think it will look, press enter, go back to the print module, it auto updates in the box, and then I still have some room to play around with the positioning if I don't lock it into that square. And if I don't like that, I can always undo, Command Z, and even go back and undo the crop as well. And go back into the print module. So you have some flexibility there. Okay, so we're just going to drag all of our pictures like we want them into the window here. Where's that picture? There we go, that I wanted originally. And we're just going to drag and drop these photos right into the boxes. Then once I'm happy with all of that, I can go ahead and print this out to Photoshop. You can also, if you use your supplies from within Lightroom, you can even put in your background paper here if you wish. If you don't, that's fine. We can add a background paper in Photoshop. So once we're happy with the placement of our photos, you'll see how quick that was to load in all these photos. We're going to come over here and scroll down, make sure this says 12 by 12, and then go print to file. I'm going to give this a name and click save. It's saving out a JPEG, and we are going to take this JPEG and open it in Photoshop to add our drop shadows and our background paper and begin to embellish it. And you'll see once it's done there, we are good to go. So I can close this window and come back over here, and here's my JPEG. I'm going to right click on that and click open with Photoshop. Here in Photoshop is the layout, and now what I need to do is copy the overlay into this file. If I go back into my download here and go into my overlays, there is an overlay that goes with each of these templates. So I just need to locate the correct overlay and then open it up in Photoshop. You'll see here that I have two options here. I can either drag my page into the overlay template, or I can just drag the overlay on top of my page. So I'm just going to go ahead and here, grab my overlay, hold in my Shift and Option key, so that would be Shift and Alt on a PC, and drag it into my document. And that will snap it automatically in position on top of my page. So you can see here, if I turn the overlay off, the shadow disappears, and if I turn it back on, there it is. And the great thing about this is now this overlay can accept any drop shadow style that I choose. So if I use my own set of drop shadows, or I've purchased some other ones that I want to use, or I want to change the angle, I can simply apply that drop shadow right to this overlay layer, and I am good to go. So that's how I get my drop shadow on top of the layer, and then I can go ahead and start embellishing it. Now there's one little trick here. If your background is white and you want to add a background paper in it, what we need to do is mask out that white area of the page. And to do that is very simple. We have two options. We can either command click on the overlay thumbnail, select the background layer, double click it, and then add a layer mask down here in the bottom, and that will automatically mask out that white area. Or if you don't have the masking capability in Photoshop Elements, the other thing you can do is simply duplicate this layer, the overlay layer, drag it behind the regular layer, and then clip your photo to it. Now the reason it disappears is because our fill has been set down to 0. All you need to do is drag that back up to 100%, and then you can even delete this original layer, because now the drop shadow is being applied down here and you've clipped this layer to it. In Photoshop Elements, you can't always adjust this fill opacity, and if that's the case, I included a layer style that will get rid of that for you. So you would just load the layer style, and then you can apply it to this layer to clear that zero fill. It's called the zero fill style. It'll just take that zero fill away for you. Okay, so now we're ready to start scrapping. So the first thing I want to do is put a paper in here. So I'm going to go into Studio Mix 85 Spring Love into my papers folder, turn on Cover Flow, and I'm going to grab this paper here. I'm just going to drag that right into my layout, press enter. It got put in between, so I moved it to the back, and I just need to reclip that layer. So now I have a background paper in there. That's great. And I'm ready to start embellishing it. Now, of course, you can embellish it the way you normally would, a regular layout, but also included in this download, let's hide this window, are what I call the embellisher actions. And this particular set is set number 1. There are other sets of embellisher actions in my store, but set number 1 comes with the option of a corner cluster, a floral cluster, and a foliage cluster. So we're going to demonstrate real quick all 3 of these types of clusters so you get an idea of how they work. I'm going to press play. And I get a message here that we're going to make a corner cluster. We're going to need to choose 2 leaves or ribbons that's going to form the corner, a flower, flare, or chipboard for the center of it, and then a button or fastener. This supply list is also provided to you in a PDF format, so you can refer to it and plan your supplies if you want to. And you'll see here as we go forward, there's also some reminders built into the action. So I'm going to press continue. And I get the message that when prompted, I choose an element from my stash, resize it to fit the canvas. It's okay if it goes off a little bit, and then press enter to apply it. So let's press continue and get started. So I'm going to go into my elements folder, and if at this point you can't remember what was it I was supposed to grab, just drag this open window out of the way and look for the file name of the file that's open. In this case, it says leaf or ribbon. So now I know that I need to go grab a leaf or a ribbon. So I'm going to turn on cover flow and scroll through these elements until I find the item that I want to use. And I'm going to look for, I know there's a leaf here, there's a leaf here, I could use that one, or I could use this one. So let's try this one. Now the action opens it up and puts it onto the canvas here, but this leaf is too big, and so it's going off the edge. I have 2 options. I can hit Command or Control plus to zoom in, and then Command Option or Control Alt minus to zoom out. And that zooms the canvas out, allowing me to see the pasteboard where I can then grab the corner here and resize and rotate this element. And the idea is the closer that the element is to the actual size of the box, the better of a result I'll get. So I just kind of want to get it in the vicinity. So when I get it close, I can press enter. The other way that you can resize an element if it goes off the screen is simply to type a percentage here up in your width or height box to get that smaller till you can see those handles. So once you're happy with it, press enter. And then we are prompted for a second leaf or ribbon. So I'm actually going to grab the same one. They don't have to be the same one, but in this case I'm going to grab the same one. And let me demonstrate how I can type 20% up here, which will sort of bring that onto the canvas. To rotate, I can click outside the white area and drag around in a circle, and that will rotate it as well. So when I'm happy with that, I can press enter. And now I'm prompted for a flower. So we can use a flower. We can also use a butterfly. So let me grab this butterfly. Press enter. And then some other type of fastener or brad. You could do a tag. Let's just select this tag and see how that works. One thing you do want to do is keep an eye on the percent here. You don't want to enlarge an element significantly over the 100% mark. If you do, you could lose some quality. So just keep an eye that you're keeping your elements about the right size. So press enter. And then the cluster here is formed in the corner of the layout. I can press enter to apply it or drag it around. Now, because I started this layout with my background paper selected, my cluster has ended up underneath my layout, and all I need to do is move it to the top. I can drag it, or I can use the key command, which is Command Shift or Control Shift and the bracket key to bring it to the top of the layout. So there's my little cluster, and I can still have all the layers selected, move it around. Because it is done on individual layers, I can still resize these items if I want to. So if I feel like some of the items are just out of proportion a little bit, that's no big deal. I can still resize them and move them around a bit. I can even change the order if I want the tag to kind of fall beneath the butterfly or something like that. I can do that. So that's how the corner cluster works. The great thing about these actions is you can use one after another. So if you want a pile of different clusters on this layout, you can leave these on. Just select the top one so you don't get as confused, and then select the next one you want to run and press play. And it will just add a new cluster. This time we're going to make a floral stack, which is 3 flowers, circles or other stackable elements, and then a button or fastener. These stacks work best if you're using flat flowers, more the paper flower type of elements. So something like this will not stack up very well because you're layering 3 really thick elements on top of each other. But a flower like this one that's very flat could work well. So let's select that one. Press enter. They don't have to be flowers. For example, if you wanted to stack cards up in a layer, you can do that. You can pick already stacked flowers and stack several on top of each other as well. I'm going to go ahead and pick this one next. And then finally, I'm going to pick that little small pink one that was down here. This one. And then finally we need a button or a fastener. We could use a bow. We can use anything that will be in the center. We could even use a tiny, small, three-dimensional flower if we wanted to. If there are no buttons or fasteners here in this kit, we can, of course, go to another kit to grab something that will work. I'm going to go ahead and use that tiny resin flower. All right, and there is the cluster, and we can position that wherever we want it to be. So let's say I want this one over here. I'm going to press enter, and then I can zoom in. I'm going to go into full screen mode here. Okay, so now I can zoom in, and if I want to, I can rotate these a little bit, and I can work on the shadowing if I want larger shadows. Maybe I decide that this one really should be a little bit further away on the canvas there, and I can make those kind of adjustments. So that is the floral, stacked floral image. I always like to select the first layer before I press play. So let's go back and do that again, the foliage. Okay, so the foliage is going to be 2 leaves and a flower. And press continue. So for this one, I'm looking for that green leaf that we saw earlier because that makes a really nice leaf for a stack here. And I'm going to resize that. I'm going to select the same one over again to use on the other side of this particular cluster. And then the last step is a flower. Let's go down and get this lovely pink flower here and get that on. And you'll see here as well, it doesn't have to be 100% on the canvas. It's okay if it hangs off a little bit. All right, and so this is one of my favorites because it's so simple but pretty, and we end up with our flower with the leaves behind it, and we can find a place for that. We can also resize it smaller if we want to, and just tuck it on the layout here. So those are the embellisher actions. This is set 1 included in this month's DigiFiles. Set 2 and 3 should already be in my store, and there'll be more sets to come. They're one of my favorite things to make, and they are very well received, and I hope that you enjoy playing with these. If you wish to purchase the commercial use version of this action, you can go over to my website and do that so that you can make clusters to sell. And if you have any questions about this or using Lightroom templates, please come let me know. I'm happy to answer questions and walk you through any trouble points and help you get started with scrapping in Lightroom and using actions. Thanks for watching this episode of Learn It.